just waiting just for just waiting just for just waiting just for waiting just for waiting just for
Yo, what's up? This is episode 18 of Andrewcast. I'm just by myself today, and I have a whole list of guests that I want on and people I want on, and I've been on hiatus probably for like 3 weeks. I haven't even been keeping count, honestly. Things have gotten so busy. August is just like the grind month. I don't know what it is about August. It's always been that way. August is when like everything comes down to the wire. Everything I'm doing creatively, I try and get it all out before September starts, before fall starts. And I am given a whole new list of responsibilities. So I try and clear out all the stuff I've been working on during the summer and try and bang it out in August, but it's not easy because I also like to take time to chill in August. But that just hasn't been happening. There's been so much that has happened this summer, and it's honestly, it's crazy. It's crazy. Good stuff, bad stuff. But really with the podcast, man, Jay took it to another level. I had a lot of great guests come on. And I just want to say first and foremost, like, people saw I put finale or something like that on my Instagram story. Like I said, final or something like that. That wasn't the last episode. I had people like text me and be like, yo, is Andrewcast over? There's no more episodes. That's not the case. All right. That finale meant like the final episode with Jay in it. Like we were sending him off because that's what was going on. I mean, he's moving to Texas. If you saw last episode, to do his thing, he's going to be going to school and doing his thing. And we were just saying goodbye with that last episode. Just telling him, how much he meant to the show and how much he meant to the progress of this idea. So Andrewcast isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Like I said from the very beginning, man, the only reason I do this is for me. Like, I do this as a memoir of myself creatively, and it serves as that function. So it's a memoir for myself, something I make just for me. And the second goal is to just promote other creative, like-minded people that are trying to do their own thing and trying to make their way in the media world. And that's really the only reason why this thing exists. So, it doesn't exist to like get like, I don't know, like commercial deals, thousands of views. Not to say that maybe it won't someday in the far future. And I definitely wouldn't say no to that kind of offer, but it's just me and in my basement, and I'm just making these shows, and I don't know, man. Like I if I was more consistent, I feel like there'd be more impact about it. This is episode 18. I've already said it before, but this is the honesty episode. Today, I'm going to talk about changes. I'm going to talk about just really what's been going on. And like, if I was more consistent with this thing, then it would have more of an impact. I'm just going to be honest with you right now. Like, and that's with a lot of things in life, and especially in the life of someone who is a creator, in the life of someone who is making things actively. You have to commit to an idea, and then you have to do that idea consistently. And you have to have a certain standard of quality that idea is presented at. And you have to match that quality every single time. That's how you make something excellent. That's how you make something great. That's how you make something that continues long after you're done making it. It's enjoyed by people long after it's been made. And eventually I'll get to that kind of level of production, hopefully. But I got a lot of chickens in the pot right now. So I'm doing Soccer Tales right now, Soccer Tales 3. For those of you who don't know, I illustrated a children's book for a local teacher slash coach a few years back, and now he's making a sequel to that book. So I'm illustrating that, and there's crunch time on that. Also, we got the ribbon. That's not on the back burner for me. I work a lot on the ribbon. And chapter 4 is getting there. It's getting there, so I have to ink that. And then we have Swords, this project I'm doing, where I'm rapping again. It's been a long time. I think the last solo little album I did with Ant was probably like freshman year of high school. Although I've been on tracks here and there for a lot of the mixtapes. When it comes down to making an album that's me and my sound, and it's been a while. And I had Swords in my mind for a while, the concept for this album, but I was like, man, I have too much stuff on my plate to go and do it. But honestly, man, like if there's never going to be a time where you're not too busy. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're always going to be busy. You're always going to be doing stuff. So that's just not an excuse. You have to find time to do it. And yeah, maybe it's slowly. Every single week you do something for it. But at least you're getting some stuff done. And so that's just what's going to happen with Andrewcast. And that's what's going to happen with Swords. So hopefully it drops in the fall. I have a track list, and it's producing the entire thing. This weekend I sat in with him, and we were just going through a ton of beats, literally a ton of beats. And I'm sure they're going to be used for various things. And either the intros to the show or to the actual tracks that I'm going to be rapping over. But yeah, it's just good going through a whole bunch of stuff, honestly. Just a ton of music that Ant's been making, and a ton of stuff that I could use for various projects. And that's what it's all about, just sourcing material, just writing right now. But yeah, I mean, working in the television industry, again, back to that concept of, steady excellence, a consistent level of excellence. Working in TV so far, I mean, that's kind of the key. I mean, the reason why we enjoy our favorite form of media, the reason why we enjoy our favorite videos, our favorite music, our favorite whatever, is actually because of the details. It's really not because of the overall premise. It's because of the details and how well it's handled with such a high attention level to those details. And that's something that just comes with time. Because when you're putting stuff together, sometimes you forget, like, I have to raise the volume here, I have to lower the volume there, I have to cut it out or make the intro shorter. All this stuff that you don't even think about when you're watching something on screen, that becomes the make or break when it comes to TV, when it comes to anything you're doing. So it's the little things, man. It's the details. Much like achieving something in life. If you're fat and you want to get skinny, it's the little choices you make every day. Well, I'm not going to have this cheeseburger. I'm going to go for some like low-fat yogurt. It's the same thing with podcasting. It's the same thing with podcasting, man. Well, I have to just do a little something every day, edit an episode every week or whatever. And I was sitting in with this guy Tibor for some company training with Avid Programming, and he's actually going to come on the podcast. Super ingenious guy, Avid instructor, worked for a bunch of people to teach them Avid video editing software, even like people at NASA, government personnel. He's really, really interesting. So he's going to come on the show. So we're going to have him on. But he was just telling me, you know what? Try not doing this thing every week. Just try doing it once a month. And I don't know how I feel about that. I still want to go for once a week. I mean, I took a huge hiatus that might as well have been a month, but I don't know. I hate to overpromise. I hate to put like, episodes will be up every week, and then it doesn't happen. It just looks bad. So I wish I could unwrite that on social media and Facebook, but I can't. Again, this is me being honest. I'm not going to. This is what it is. It's a very humble show. But behind me on this little poster are the signatures of some very wonderful people who have come on so far. And to you, I'm truly appreciative. And this episode is just going to take time to talk about creative process, what's going on with that, the podcasts and just stuff that's been on my mind lately. I'm trying to not make this a video memoir, like, or I mean, it serves as that, but I'm trying not to make it like an audio diary or something like that. I'm just trying to bring up maybe interesting points of conversation. Honestly, who knows with this episode? I just felt like I had to do it, and so here I am doing it. But I just want to get into, as critical as I am on myself, I just want to thank everybody who has been in support of this podcast, even though it's humble. You know, I go places sometimes on the weekends. I see old friends, or I'll run into somebody somewhere, and you know how it is when you're meeting somebody from the past, shaking hands, and oh, what's up? Yo, man, I listen to your podcast. When people say that, it means a lot. It really does, and it's a nice feeling to have when somebody's like, "Yo, I listen to your stuff." You're like, "Thanks, man." Even if they don't, even if they're just saying they're aware, it's the thought that counts, right? But I just want to thank everybody that's been so supportive. People who texted me when they saw that finale thing on Instagram, which is on my Instagram story. They were like, "Oh, is this the last episode?" No, it's not the last episode. There's no heartfelt goodbye with me and Jay, even though he's a good friend of mine and an excellent partner in creativity. When you have someone who's that good of a friend, it's never goodbye. It's always see you later, and that's just that. So, but yeah, for everybody who's just been asking me about this and like, yo, I want to sit in. I've had people like call me and text me like, I'm trying to sit in on an episode. Like, I'm trying to see how you do it. There's no magic here. What you see is what you get. But people are like, yo, man, I'm trying to sit in. Like, I always had an idea to do talk shows as well. Like, yeah, is it all right if I come and sit in on an episode? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Like, you know, of course you can. But it means a lot to me that what I'm doing is inspiring people. Maybe not on a massive level, but whenever I get a call like, yo, I'm trying to do what you're doing. I've had people text me like, hey, can you give me advice on my show? I had somebody go on my Instagram DM the other day that I didn't know. That was a friend of Rob's. That was like, yo, man, like, I'm starting a podcast. I'm going to write you an email with questions and stuff like that. The fact that people see what I'm doing and it's inspiring them to try and do their own thing, that's dope. And I'm super happy for them. And I just want them to succeed. I feel like a lot of my friends are doing podcasts and I'm trying to bring them on. Like, not a lot. I mean, like 2 or 3 that I know, which is a lot to me, but I'm trying to bring them on to this show, you know, and just podcast out. This is the medium of the future, in my opinion. What I mean by that is we live in such a multitasking generation, and I mean that was really the birth. I can't even talk. The birth. That was really the birth of Andrewcast. Was just me grinding, just like filling out applications senior year, drawing my comic at like 4:00, 5:00 in the morning. There's nobody that is gonna hang out with you at that time to watch you draw and fill out applications. So you gotta seek refuge in human company in. I'm probably destroying this audio. Hold on. Oh my goodness. You're seeking, refuge in human company in the form of broadcasting, in the form of a podcast. Maybe it's your favorite comedian. And for that little time that you're working on something, you don't feel alone because you have a voice on the computer that's making you laugh, that's bringing up interesting things that, you think about or interesting topics and life problems or UFC for me or, a whole bunch of other stuff. And you can pick that audience. It's cool because in this generation of multitasking, you can be entertained while doing something. I can draw. I can do my artwork while I'm also being educated. And yeah, you could do that with audiobooks, but there's something about a simulated conversation that keeps your mind engaged. You're like, okay, it's like someone's in the room right now talking with me. And it's such a cool feeling, It really is. And it's a snapshot of your reality. It's a snapshot of what's going on in your life and what's going on in the world. If you listen to an old podcast, you're like, whoa, like they're talking about like when the PS3 like first came out. Like I remember how hype I was like to get a PlayStation 3. And it's a snapshot of that time. even people, who have passed on, who have done like audio recordings like this, when you listen to their recordings after their death, it's almost like they're still there, and that's what's really cool about this medium. And a whole bunch of celebrities are doing it, a whole bunch of athletes are doing it, and I'm not doing it to be like them. I'm doing it because I'm doing this podcast, and this podcast is still going to go on because it served that function for me. It served as a creative inspiration, as a source of companionship, especially through those tough transitional times that come right after college. Yeah, you know, God is good for real. So, with my job, before I started working at WHYY, before I started working at the public television station in Philadelphia, I was working for the local newspaper, and that's when Tom came on a previous episode. I think it was like episode 15, maybe 14. Tom came on. He was like the quote unquote cartoonist, illustrator, photographer guy for that newspaper. Before I got that job at WHYY, I was working for the paper. And what the paper was trying to do to stay alive in this media market where literally nobody reads the paper was to have this constant video channel, this streaming service that would go 24/7, and it would be online. It have news, it have all this stuff. So basically, like the newspaper's television station, like it's its own television broadcasting thing, but strictly online. And there was a lot of work put into it. There's a whole algorithm that they tried to teach me to like program it. That I was like, whoa, you know what I'm saying? I went to school for video and media production. I didn't go to school to do programming. But like there was a whole algorithm and a spreadsheet to keep track of like what episodes came on when and duration and this and that, and had a morning show every morning that I would edit, and I'd have to edit it in like an hour, and then upload that, and then the rest of my day was just like preparation for the other stuff. But that was my job for quite a bit, and that wasn't the first job I got out of school, but that was my job for quite a bit. And the hours were 11 a.m. to 7 p.m., which are pretty tough. It was pretty tough for me, but it was a job, and I was doing good. But my heart was really telling me, man, you got to do TV. Because my final career goal was to work at Adult Swim. I'd love nothing more than to do that. So you got to stay focused. Got to stay focused on the goal. It's not just about what you're getting paid or convenience. You got to keep challenging yourself. So I was like, look, I need a television job. So I would constantly apply. I would constantly apply to TV jobs while I was working at Bucks County Courier Times. Not that that was a bad place. It was a wonderful place. But I was constantly applying to other jobs while I was working there. And everybody there was nice, really cool. They gave me a really awesome setup. I had, 3 computer monitors. I had my own laptop. They were going to give me like my own phone. It was absolutely great. And then I got this interview for WHYY, and I interned there all 2015. So I'm like, wow, I got this interview. I interned there, There's no way that was a good chance that they're going to hire me. So I really psyched myself up, as you do when you're going into interviews, and, I wore my best suit and I got myself ready. And for any college person listening to this, or any young person that just got out of college and they're looking for a job, look, interviews are tough, man. I know they're tough. It doesn't matter how outgoing and well-spoken you are and how you present yourself. It can still go wrong. Like, you could still totally not get the job. So you're just putting yourself out there. And if you're not comfortable with failure, if you're not comfortable with getting rejected, then job interviews are going to be twice as bad for you. They're going to be really, really awful. You got to go in with the confidence that you'll get the job, but with the toughness that you can just take an L. Like, you could just have them say, you're not what we're looking for. There's the door. Like, always have that in your mind. You know what I'm saying? Like, have the mentality that you're going to win it, but have the guts, have the strength to be like, yo, I could just take an L. Like, they could just be like, yo, we don't need you. So that's the kind of like mentality I go into with interviews. And I've been in a bunch of interviews, a ton of interviews, like more than I think someone else my age has been to. I've been to so many job interviews. I have some horror stories. I have some great stories. I'll save those for other episodes. But long story short, I go to this interview and I was talking to this PR person for a while before the interview, and I go in and try and do like my best impression. And I talk to who would my manager to be, my manager. They're asking me a few questions, stuff like that. And, the interview's over. I'm sitting there in my suit. Everyone's smiling, hands folded on the table. And they go, that classic interview end, which is, do you have any questions? And I go, yeah, when's the earliest I'll hear from you? We're looking to make a decision within the next 2 weeks. So I was like, that's cool. That's great. So I go home, giddy, still working at my job, but in my mind thinking like, I'm probably going to get it. Yeah, the interview went really well. I'm probably going to get it. I might get it. So you build up this hope, while you're working and stuff like that. Like, oh, okay, I wonder like what would change if I worked at this company? Like, what would my life look like if my working hours were like this? Or maybe I could go to the gym later and stuff like that, And you're kind of planning, but not planning too much because you can't really count on it. So a week went by. This is October. Another week goes by. I write an email. The third week's about to go by. And the second, I think it was like within the hour, I sent an email asking, like, hey, like, this is Andrew. I'm just checking up on the status of the position hunt, like blah, 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 like, being really formal. And I get an email right as I send it from them. So they didn't read mine, but by some freak chance, I sent an email to them as they were sending one back to me. And I remember the email said, like, your heart sinks when you read the subject, not the subject, but like the first sentence, because it's always like, first and foremost, we want to thank you so much. Once you hear that, first and foremost, we want to thank you so much, you don't got the job. If you had the jobs, they'd be like, congratulations. There'd be like some exclamatory first sentence, but this first sentence was, you don't have, no, it didn't say that. I'm thinking ahead. The first sentence was, we'd like to first and foremost thank you for applying to WHRY. And as soon as I read that, I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't get this job. And it wouldn't have hurt so much if I didn't have to wait so long. And that's not their fault. It's just the industry. But, I continued to read it, and it was just like, this interview process was very, very intense, and we were between a lot of candidates. And, you just hear that, and all you're thinking about is, oh man, like all that time wasted thinking about this. And, it gets to be very sad. And I remember I read that, and I was so distraught, as I am with a lot of interviews. I don't let it like really eat at me, but I do let it push me and pressure me to work harder, to apply to more things, to get a more impressive reel or a better cover letter. So I did what I did in college when I got rejected to jobs. I printed out the rejection letter, and I put it in a place where I could look at it every single day, and it would inspire me to do better. I wasn't bitter about it. I wasn't beating myself up. But I would just look at it and be like, that doesn't define me. This rejection to this job is not an obstacle in my path. It's an indicator that I'm doing something right, that I'm working towards something good. And eventually I will get a letter that says yes. So I kept working at this job. And, fall turns to winter, and my homie Ricky Patel, he's probably going to be on this podcast. He was like, yo, come out to Detroit. We're going to celebrate my birthday. We go and we celebrate. We have a great time. We're staying at a hotel, and I remember I wake up the next morning in the hotel room. It's a mess. We have all our stuff everywhere, and I'm the only one awake. And this is like months after I got rejected. And I get a call on my phone, and it's super early for me. So I'm like waking up. I'm like, yo, what's up? Because it's a number I don't recognize. I'm just picking it up. Yo, what's good? And it was the PR lady from WHRY. She's like, hey, Mr. Arcangelo. I was like, oh. I snapped into formality mode. I was like, oh, hey. Oh, it's so nice to, And she goes, I just want to let you know that you were second in our search for the position for media technician. But we hired someone else over you that had more experience, which is understandable. But that person left, and now we want to offer you the position. So it was so much to drop on me so early in the morning, and I was just like, well, you see, I'm working at this other place now, and they gave me a laptop, and they're gonna give me a phone. And she was like, look, we'll just email you the offer, and you can compare numbers or whatever you need to compare, but just get back to me by the end of the week. And I said, okay. So it's hard trying to have fun with your friends on the weekend when you're like, yo, should I take this job? Should I not take it? And I mean, like, for most people, it's like a no-brainer, but it's like, they already gave me so much, and I've only been there for a few months, and, I kind of put it in my head that I didn't have this job and I was going to get something else, and I was really debating with myself. And what ended up happening was I was like, look, I need to move on this job. Something is telling me to move on this job. Just go get it. So I moved on the job, and I left Bucks County Courier-Times. And the person who hired me was, kind of sad, but it's a professional move. It's nothing personal. It's a professional move. So I said goodbye to all the friends I made there, and I went. Fast forward 7 months later, here we are today, still working at WHYY. And I got I got a coworker across from me, and he's like, "Hey man, I was talking to your old boss," and I'm like, "Which one?" "Oh, the one at Bucks County Courier-Times." I was like, "Yeah, for real? Like, what's up? That's such a coincidence. Like, what did he say? What did he say to you? How's things going at the Courier-Times?" And he's like, well, first off, your position doesn't exist anymore. They have been bought out, essentially. And they're doing some, like, reworking. And basically the video department at the newspaper is gone. And your position doesn't exist anymore. And they're downsizing, so they're cutting a lot of people. And that's just the nature of the business. It's not any animosity towards anyone. That's just what it is. But I remember hearing that, and I was, like, blown away. Just absolutely blown away. That like 20 or whatever the number of people were cut, and then the position that I filled, that I worked every single day with those algorithms and to tape the show and this and that, was just gone. And I thought about all the people I worked with on that project and where they must be right now if their job doesn't exist anymore. And I just thought to myself, like, God is so good, because if I didn't take the WHYY job for whatever reason, then I would be unemployed, because they would just have cut me, and then where would I be? So this is a big, long personal story, and, the reason I'm telling it is to just, I guess, really bring up the topic of change in a professional way and in a personal way in your life. For me, a change of setting it's just that, a change of setting, but you have to be willing to change. And that's like the one thing that, like, as people, for some reason, as creative professionals, like, it's hard, man. Like, we don't want to change. We cling so much to what is familiar to us because we don't want to get hurt. We don't want to be uncomfortable. We don't want to have undue pressure. There's a lot of stuff I need to learn at this new job, and that I'm still learning, and it's just like, if I wasn't ready to take that plunge to make the change, then I would be nowhere right now. Nowhere. So yeah, man, it's just like things in life change, and that's what this podcast is really trying to capture in my life, in what I'm doing creatively. I want to look back on this episode, who knows, like 5 years from now, and probably cringe at myself, but also to just be like, all right, this is where I was, like, professionally. This was where I was in my professional and creative development. Like, these are the projects I was working on. Where am I now? Have I upped my game? Am I working on more stuff? Have I accomplished what I want to accomplish, And the only way to do that is to change. Is to change with the market, the demand for whatever media it is, I don't know how newspaper companies stay afloat. I'm not versed in that kind of business. I don't know how print companies stay afloat in general when all the information's on the internet and it's for free. How do you get someone to buy a newspaper? How do you get someone to buy a magazine? My answer is that you have these people who are typically older consumers who are more geared towards an antiquated way of consuming news and consuming entertainment. So they don't really rely on the internet and video. They'd much rather like read the paper, you know? And all I can say is that everything that resists change will be destroyed. Like Blockbuster, you know, you will be gone, especially in this television and video industry. You know, you will be destroyed. Photographers, man, like if you're a photographer nowadays and you're not on Instagram, I don't know. I mean, unless you're already established. When Jay and I talked about that last episode. But really, that's what it is. Just change and how things change. You know, we go through seasons of change all the time. When I first started drawing the ribbon, I was in a completely different mindset than where I am right now. The story didn't change. The story didn't change at all. But the direction, the creative direction, the way I was drawing the characters, the way I was imagining how the series would go, that has completely and utterly changed in a way that is just, you know, a product of my life, because art imitates life. And truly, with the ribbon, with the actual comic, it's just been taking in a whole bunch of influences, just a whole bunch of stuff that I've seen and kind of working it into a cohesive story with my own characters. And Alan Moore once said, to really make this isn't an exact quote, but this is what he was saying in general, to make an immersive world of fiction, you have to create the world first before you create the characters or the story or anything. You really have to imagine like what the world is. Like, for example, in Watchmen, you have an alternate version of the 1980s. Excuse me. You have an alternate version of the 1980s where superheroes used to exist, but now they're outlawed by the government. You know, that premise right there, you could tell 1,000 stories with that premise, but the story that you focus on is Watchmen. And you know, that's just that's what I had to focus on when I was first starting the ribbon. I wanted to design a world that was two halves. One was full of human civilization and animals flourishing and all this good positive stuff, and the other half, literally, on the other side of the equator of the planet, was this darkness just full of monsters and things that consume and feed off those organic life, those plants and trees and animals. So it's literally something that is feeding. It's a food source to this destruction, this animosity, this evil, which we'll uncover as the series goes on. There's always the twist, but that's the world I designed when I was first drawing the ribbon. And everything developed from that world. The characters, the monsters, the enemies, the arcs, the way the story goes in general, all developed from that premise of like a light and a dark. And I have a lot of friends who are in fiction, or they're writing stories, or they're making stuff. We had Dave Green on one time. That guy's brilliant. He taught me most of what I know about making comics. Really good friend of mine. And you know, he does the same thing. He does the same thing. And that's what I like to call a proper creative process, where because anybody can have an idea for like a movie and stuff. We're really jumping around topics here, but it's whatever. Anybody can have an idea for a movie or something. Anybody can have an idea for a story. But that idea, like just what it is, like, I don't know. We'll take something like E.T. So a kid makes friends with an alien, and he hides the alien in his house. Like, whoa, okay, that's a premise for a movie, but like, what's the world like? Like, what's the town that he lives in? What is the setting? That's the most important part of making any kind of story. And does the setting change? And if the setting changes, then how do the characters change according to that setting? So, you know, Dave Green's Meyer Katz is about a cowboy who is trying to be the best of the West. So the world that he lives in is the Wild West, and we have all sorts of people in the Wild West. We have Native Americans, we have cowboys, we have bandits, And as soon as you bring these elements into play, the story kind of tells itself. Well, the main character is a cowboy. He has to fight a bandit, but there's a team of, there's a tribe of Native Americans that are making sure that the gold trade is. So, like, once you have all the variables there, it's very easy to make a story based off that. And I've had people text me about, like, oh, Andrew, I've been reading your comic and stuff like that. Why does it take so long? And because honestly, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work for one person, even though it's kind of done the style of a manga where it's black and white, and I'm not really coloring in anything. I'm just inking stuff. It's still a lot of work because of that exact reason that I've just been talking about, the world building. I have to go back on these notes that I wrote freshman year of college and be like, okay, like, I have to write the story according to this because this is one of the rules of the world, I have to look back on concept art I made like years ago to draw characters now that I'm just drawing. I have to pull from all these sources and stuff that I did previously in preparation for this series. And that's why it takes so long. And that's why it takes long to do a lot of stuff. That's why it takes long to do a podcast, because you got to go through the list of the people that you want on and call them. And then sometimes, they don't pick up, and or they just changed, their schedule changed. And again, that's nothing negative. That's, they have a life. They have a life. Honestly, you're kind of, you're a nice person, but, I don't blame you if you don't want to come down to my basement to do a podcast. It's kind of a weird thing, but to those of you who have come on, again, I'm appreciative and I'm grateful. But you got to roll with the punches, man. You have to roll with the changes. That's definitely the theme of this episode. So it just takes a long time to do a podcast. It takes a long time because people cancel on you, and then you have to set up all the equipment by yourself and this and that and that. So I don't know how I'm going to manage without without Jay, because he would do a lot of that stuff. He would set the camera up for me. He would take the pictures for me. He would do the graphic stuff on the website. But again, that's all me. So, and the same thing with the comic, and that's all me unless I got money to hire some sort of editor or assistant that would like help me ink in my illustrations. That would be like the only time that there could ever be some sort of like assistant that would help me out with that. Otherwise, it's all me. And when you're doing stuff all by yourself, it takes a while. It takes a long, long time. Even with the TV shows that I do, we try and bang out an episode in the span of like 2 to 3 weeks. And it's 2 to 3 weeks for 28 minutes. Now, that's a lot of time. But again, it's contacting the music artist. It's getting the pictures that we need. It's putting stuff together. It's making a sequence or an edit that's very intricate, and then watching it and being like, wait, that's not what we're looking for. Deleting that, throwing it away, and making something else. And being a creative is a very time-consuming process, and a lot of times it's not rewarding financially because people really downplay the process and need of like art, There's 1,000 people out there looking for like logo designs, but they're not willing to pay anything, right? They're just like, yo, I need a logo. That's the least important thing. I just need a picture to represent my company, but it doesn't have to do with anything regarding my business or regarding my practice. So I'm just, whatever, man. Just like, I'm looking to get it done for like $200, like $300. And I get it. If I was in their position, I wouldn't want to pay a lot of money too. And actually that $300 for a logo is probably a lot of money, but I'm just in other scenarios. Like I'm looking for a videographer, but I can only pay him like $50 a day and stuff like that. Like, look, man, like we really underestimate the need for and the process for these people who just make their money off of doing creative stuff. Now, a really good way to go about it is to do it enough so that there's a demand for it. And by it, I'm sorry if this is confusing. By it, I mean like drawing, like making a comic, like if you make a YouTube series that people like, if you make a podcast, you do it enough that it gains an audience, it gains a demand, and then you can start getting revenue off of that. And in the beginning, it's slow, it's small, and then it starts to grow and grow and grow. And before you know it, you're making a living off of doing something that you started doing as a hobby. And I know somebody who does that. I bring him up often. I want to bring him on the podcast. He's the owner of God Squad Church. which is a Twitch channel where he plays Overwatch, and he also does church sermons at the same time. And this guy is sponsored by the Assemblies of God, the AG, which is a Christian foundation. Basically, he plays video games for a living. And it can be done. That's the thing. Like, this age of the internet, creative people can be self-employed, and they can spend all day being creative. And, I already do that with the job, even though I work for a corporation. But it would be awesome to do that by myself, unrestricted. And I think that's the goal of a lot of people who are doing creative things, That's not the reason why I do it, but it's definitely a goal. I would love to have it happen. I'm working towards it, on multiple accounts, not necessarily this podcast, but your reason why should always be because you love it, because it's your passion. But man, like being today, like because of the internet, you can be self-employed doing something like this. And that is something that boggles my mind. Maybe I'm just like a dude who's like eating peanut butter and being like, wow, peanut butter is so amazing. Don't you just love peanut butter? But like, I'm really trying to make a statement here when I say that if you're someone out there who's being creative and you're doing something and you're creating stuff on a consistent basis, you can make a job for yourself. And there's never been a time in history where that's been the case as much as it is right now. Like, I just think it's so funny, this world that we live in, where like kids, like parents can get mad at kids for playing video games. And obviously they have their reasons. Do good in school. Don't skip a test to play video games. But like, they're like, what are you doing playing video games? You're wasting your time. You shouldn't be playing video games because video games are blah, 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 and you should be doing something more constructive with your time. But what if this kid is streaming his videos on Twitch or on YouTube, and he actually has a bit of a personality, and he makes pretty good commentary, and people laugh, and they follow his channel? That kid who's playing video games all day, that his parents are yelling at him, he could be making money playing video games. And it blows your mind. And when you meet someone like that in real life, you get jealous or whatever, or envious. Most people do. They're like, oh my gosh, your life is so easy. You don't know what it's like to have a real job. Well, maybe they do. Maybe that's why they started doing it. My point is, we're talking about the creative process here and changes. The market is changing. You can do that now. And it's hard for older people, older professionals to look at like young people and children and be like, oh, you're just a YouTuber. Oh, you're just a guy who plays video games. You don't, you can't get paid off of that. They do. That's the thing. Like, so I don't know. Think twice before you yell at your kids for playing video games, because what if they become a big video game YouTuber and they're making money off YouTube? I mean, that's just the case. There's people out there that make like, I don't know, videos where they're literally, I'm not a supporter of this form of online media, but like, they're rehashing viral videos like Ray William Johnson did with his Equals 3 show. They just have a compilation of online videos where they break it down. They talk about like, oh, look at this orangutan stole this kid's backpack. Like, isn't this funny? Those people are making money just talking about stuff that already exists. Like, it's out there. It is a gold mine. YouTube's a gold mine. Twitch is a gold mine. There's a whole bunch of places that are just ripe and ready for people to come along and make money off of it. And they can avoid having a regular job. They can make their own hours essentially, and they can just create and get paid for it. People consume it and they get ad revenue or whatever it is. And it's hard. It's not easy at all. Believe me, it's hard. It's super hard. I see reaction videos of like these people getting like partnership deals and stuff, and like they're close to crying because like that's how hard it is. But it's possible. That's the crazy thing, is that it's possible. It is possible to do that. And to me, that's ultimate freedom. That's something that I'm definitely shooting for in the future. And that's something that I think this podcast will help me organize myself and conduct myself as such, as somebody who is an independent creator, who is consistently making content. I got to work on that part, but, stay humble, work hard. That's just what it is. So yeah, about changes, man. I want to do a lot of changes with this podcast. I really do. I want to have a nicer setup for it. I want to have a green screen would be awful. I don't want to do that. Definitely better lighting. Definitely better lighting. Just some more sophisticated stuff. I might change these mics up in a bit. I don't know, but just a better set, I think, to start would be. And then I had a really good suggestion from a old college friend of mine, Matt DeCaro, that to start doing not YouTube, Instagram video previews of the episode. So I would take an excerpt of this episode and put it on Instagram so people can watch the video and be like, oh, this is what this conversation's about. Maybe I should watch the podcast. And to me, I think that's a really good idea. And it's definitely effective in having people watch. Because Instagram has become like the new like video watching source. I mean, World Star Hip Hop's Instagram and then Barstool Sports Instagram. Those two are like, you just go on for videos. Like, it's rare that you go into Barstool Sports to like look at a picture that was posted. It's always for like a video. And they have some really, really funny videos. But, if you're on Instagram, you don't know that account. That's what I'm talking about. It's like me talking about McDonald's. Everybody knows what Barstool Sports is. But, yes, like Instagram has become like the new video platform. So, one of the first changes I want to do with the show is to have video previews of the episode on Instagram for people to watch, and definitely do a better job of running my Instagram account. If you follow my Instagram account and and I didn't follow back, I apologize. I totally will. Right now, I have Jay running it for me, but I'm not, obviously he's leaving, so I'm not sure how long he's going to run it. So I'm probably going to have to start running it again along with my personal account. And I promise if you follow the Andrewcast on Instagram, I will follow you right back. That's a promise. Maybe not right back, but eventually I will when I log in. I don't care. A lot of people care about like their followers to following ratio. I don't got time for that. If you follow me, you get followed. And if you unfollow me, it's whatever. You're still followed. I don't care. I think it's just the principle of the thing. Like, I always will follow you if I'm on the Andrewcast. I may not like your posts all the time because I'm not browsing with the Andrewcast Instagram, but I am posting content. So first thing I want to change, I definitely want to have video previews for the episodes on Instagram because I feel like people will watch it and it gives you a better idea of what the episodes are about. Shout out to my boy Matt DeCaro. Great idea. Thank you so much. So that's the first change I want to do. And then back to the set topic. I'd like to have a better set. I'd like to have better chairs. I'd like to do a lot of stuff with this, but the show is still young. I mean, we're on the 18th episode right now, so I have time. The Joe Rogan podcast, which is one of the Joe Rogan Experience, which is one of my biggest inspirations, that on August 18th, that podcast will officially reach the 1,000 episode mark, which is absolutely insane, which would be a dream of mine to accomplish. But I'm not sure if I could meet that many interesting people without being someone famous. Actually, no, you totally could. I mean, just living life and existing, I'm sure you could meet some pretty weird people. But yeah, that's just absolutely insane. He's at 1,000 episodes, which is completely crazy. I can't even imagine hopefully if the show goes on for that long, like what this show would be like at episode 1,000. It'd probably be absolutely insane. Don't you just wish sometimes you can go into the future and look at things? Like it's that age-old question that people ask, like if you had a book that it's such a stupid question. It's like if you had a book and the book you started reading the book and you realized like it was the story of your life, like would you read ahead? Would you look at the future chapters? And like I've asked that as a hypothetical question. Like, no, I haven't asked that because it's a dumb question to ask. But I've seen it in an area that I'm sharing with someone else, and they see it too. And I bring it up like, yo, would you look ahead? And people are like, no, man, I wouldn't want to know. You wouldn't be able to resist. That's my theory on that age-old question. If you picked up a book and it had the future, your future in it, your personal future in it, would you read it? I say everybody would. There wouldn't be one person that would be like, nope, not going to look, man, because it would probably change something. You'd be so curious. You'd be like, I absolutely have to read it. I mean, obviously, if you have a lot of self-discipline, you'd probably be able to restrain yourself. But come on, man, like, that's just what it is. Like, everyone wants to know the future. I'd love to know the future of the show. If somehow, man, like, I could see a future episode of the Andrewcast and like see what guests are on, even how I look as an old man, I'd love to see that. but who knows, man. I'm just rambling. That's what this episode is. It's rambling about changes and stuff. So yeah, I want to change this show. A long time ago, I posted a video on Instagram that a lot of people commented on. A lot of people liked. It was like a video of me walking around this park in Philadelphia with a sword, like a crazy person. That was the intended intro to the show. Jay turned it into a promo, which is kind of like a commercial that I definitely want to run on like the Instagram story and stuff like that. But the footage from that shoot, if Jay still has it, I want to edit that myself with some of the new music I'm making with Anthony and turn that into the show's actual intro. So instead of rolling one of Ant's beats in the beginning of the show, which is great, and I love doing that, eventually I want to have just a full-fledged rapped and written by me kind of thing where I just go in and just have a super sick kind of semi-music video that's about this podcast that brings us to the episode. Because I think that'd be more dynamic, more flashy, and just overall better show material. I'm always trying to find a way to make things more interesting. Because this show is pretty black and white, man. I sit down with somebody and we talk. There's no agenda. I don't talk about a lot of like stuff that other podcasts talk about. I talk about just a lot of stuff I'm interested in, and I just go off of whatever story they want to tell, whatever they're experiencing, whatever they're feeling, man. So yeah, it's pretty open, and I guess maybe I kind of want to center this down to a little theme, you know, a little more of a, okay, this feels like the Andrewcast, because right now I don't think like my brand, if you'd call it that, the name of this show has like an authentic feel. There's not really anything authentic Andrewcast. We talk about the internet, anime, hip hop, and video games, but like there has to be this thing where like you're watching it and you're like, wow, this is Andrewcast. But who knows? Maybe that will never develop. But I'm trying to turn that up a little bit, you know. But I want to change gears. I want to switch gears here to talk about hip hop a little bit. You know, recently I've just been on a kind of like an old hip hop just like kick right now. I'm just on this like old kind of like Tribe Called Quest, Wu-Tang Clan, De La Soul kind of thing going on, man. And I don't know. Maybe that's how I usually am, but like more than ever, you know, more than ever, I've really been like just listening to like lyrical, deep hip hop. Some of it's not deep. Some of it's just rambunctious. Some of it's just about just craziness, just absolute craziness that someone in my circumstance could never relate to. But you know, there's a story behind it, and I just want to compare hip hop to podcasting because it is, again, kind of like a slice of life, you know, whether, you know, the art is mimicking reality. It's a story about this person, about this rapper, about this MC, it's a story about their values, what they find valuable. It's a story of where they come from. So it's kind of like listening to a podcast in a way when I listen to hip hop, I'm like, all right, what is Big L trying to say? Lifestyles of the poor and dangerous, man. What is he talking about when he said he used to rob old ladies? I don't know anything about that. But again, it's a story that draws you in. It's an experience. And that's how Tribe Called Quest is, man. Tribe Called Quest, when you put like Midnight Marauders on, when you put something like that on, you just put your headphones on, it completely enraptures you, and it takes you to this place where you're like, okay, like I'm in this era, I'm in this time, I'm feeling this beat. Like there's just stuff that they say, you know, that like you're like, wow, I really jive with that. And I know I'm being really inspecific here, but that's like the essence of old school hip hop, where it's like this sounds like old school hip hop. Like I let people listen to the beats that Ant make for me, and like, oh, you're into that boom bap stuff, you're into that old school stuff, and I'm like, I guess, I don't know, like this stuff kind of exists today, but it's not really in the limelight, like. But yeah, I've just been taking a lot of influence from that recently. Like, I feel like Swords, the type of beats that Ant has been making for me has been like really Wu-Tang, kind of like samurai kung fu movie on a mission kind of stuff. And that is kind of what Swords is about, but it's also practical. It's also about my life. So you're going to get like a slice of everything, but a lot of hip hop's been inspiring me a lot to make this and to write this and to make art for it and to just sit down with Ant and hash out these beats. So Swords, basically, to tell you a little bit about that project, is I I have been trying to make something that's kind of definitive of me, but I've wanted to gather all the other like rappers and like hip hop people that I've met through like college and through like different avenues together on this to kind of like be featured on tracks and to, like to put their own creative input. Basically, I'm trying to make something just like really, really memorable for a lot of people, including myself, because I just do. I want to make an album that just exemplifies what I've been learning so far during the process and the work of just growing up, honestly. And I had this conversation with Ant the other day. I was like, one of the reasons that I still try and like just write raps and like and do that kind of MC and stuff is that I look at a lot of music today, and there's not a lot of people doing what I want to see. Meaning that, like, not to say that stuff isn't good today, because there's dope stuff out today, or supremely dope stuff that's better than anything I'll ever make or ever do. But there's not something with the specific style that I want to see that already exists. And because that's the case, I feel that it is my job to bring that into reality as well. I feel as though it is my calling to really set forth in motion what I'm feeling, what kind of style I want to see, you know? Because if you don't see your exact style, what you would exactly do mimicked in like hip hop or art or whatever you want to do, it's more of a reason for you to go out and do it. So for example, like if you're watching a movie and you're just like, I just don't see an alien movie that really captures what I think an alien movie should be, then you should make it. And this goes out to a lot of media critics. That are like, well, this game is just not what I think. Well, then go and make a game, man. If you don't think it's good, then go and make one that you think is good. That's why, like, critics who are just critics, they're not creators, like, they don't have a lot of weight in my mind. They don't have a lot of say because they don't make anything. They just sit back and this is good, this is bad. Well, what authority do you have to make that call when you don't make things yourself? You don't know what goes into it. The time constraints, the dedication to the details, all that stuff that I talked about in the beginning of this episode. When you don't really have an idea of how that works, who are you to say that, like, oh, this isn't up to par, this just wasn't good, when you don't make your own stuff? So, you know, that's what it is, and that's why I'm making Swords, man, because I want to make something that, like, I have here. When I'm writing, you know, I imagine what it's going to be like in my head, and I get excited. But then reality hits, and I'm like, oh, this is going to take so long. Excuse me. I got to take a drink here. This is going to take so long, and there's going to be so many moving parts. You know, will I have the chance to make it what I want it to be? And will the people that I envision in my mind to collaborate on it, will they be available to collaborate on it? I don't know. It's the same thing with this podcast. I sit down, I write a list of all the people I want on, and then one by one, oh, you know, man, I can't. I got my grandma's party today, and that's cool, man. Maybe next weekend. You know, next weekend I got another guest on, but I hit them up just in case. And like, yeah, yo, today was the day that my cat had to go to the vet, and I have to, you know, do my crochet class or whatever. And I'm like, all right, cool. And there comes a point where you just don't want to hit them up anymore because you don't want to be annoying. You know, you don't want to be like, yo, come on, yo, come on, yo, come on. So it's not that important, man. You move on and you get other people. But for what I'm envisioning with this album, for Swords, I want a lot of people involved. Just because I think a lot of people could bring something good to my idea. I feel like a lot of people could make the music videos I got planned for this really dope. I think a lot of people could write really decent hooks over the beats that Ant gave me. I feel like a lot of people could bring life to the interludes, you know, with poetry and stuff like that. So I'm trying to get everybody involved, man. I'm trying to get everybody out and get them to record and stuff like that. I just want to encourage people to be creative. It's the same thing I do with this podcast. So when Swords comes out, which is, who knows, man? I don't want to set a deadline, man. When Jay and I were doing the photo shoot for Swords, he was like, yo, when's it coming out? So I could tell people, and his heart was in the right place. But I was just like, man, I hate to, like I said in the beginning of this episode, I hate to promise. I hate to tell people, yo, we're going to have new content every Tuesday. Be on the lookout for a new episode, because then when it doesn't happen, people get disappointed. So I'm just like, yo, it's going to come sometime 2018. That's fair, right? And if it comes before then, that's even better, you know, but I'd rather people think that it's coming later than sooner. And that is what it is. So there's a lot of work to do on it right now. There's a lot of tracks I gotta do. I don't want to get into specifics because who knows what might change about it. But yeah, man, it's low key. It's just something I'm trying to do to just shake things up a little bit because it's been a while since I've been rapping, and honestly, I missed it. And the real reason that like I want to make another album, besides seeing the music marketplace right now and not seeing the exact style that I want portrayed, and the real reason I'm doing it is because like I have stuff to say. Like I'm gonna talk about the evolution as like of me and Ant as rappers. Like first off, like for anybody who's ever listened to Avalanche Crew, I'm not surprised if you haven't. You know, if you're a friend of mine, you're listening to this, you probably listened to Avalanche Crew. You've probably heard like me and Ant's songs like from before. Ant outweighs me lyrically, and I know when he hears this episode, he's gonna be like, "Oh, don't say that, man. Don't say that." He talks nice to me, man, but he outweighs me very lyrically. He is a supreme lyrical writer. Anthony Clarkson, I just want to say, is one of the best rappers I know, man. Like he's one of the best rappers I know. But I feel like when I was younger and I was rapping, you know, I was making some dope stuff for like a kid my age, but like I really didn't have anything to talk about. You know, I was just kind of spitting like stuff that sounded cool, stuff that sounded good. I didn't really have an inclination or like a message. And if I did, it was just like it was really dumb and juvenile, and it just was not portrayed artistically enough to be considered interesting hip hop, to be considered interesting music. You know, it was just like bland. It was like bleh. Like what is this? Like an essay for a creative writing class? Like step your game up. But now that I'm older and like I'm more seasoned and I've listened to more stuff and I've been writing more, that's the key to anybody who's like a rapper. I'm not somebody to give advice. I'm not the best rapper in the world, but like as somebody who knows how to write rhymes, like the key is just writing a little bit every day. And somebody who's written more, like somebody's more seasoned. Now I feel like I have something of substance to offer. You know, I have an ear for how things should be recorded. I have an ear for what I want to do. But again, I feel like I'm talking about the same things, man. Again, to just reiterate, when you do something creative, I've said this before on the show and I've said it in the beginning of this episode. When you do something creative, don't do it for other people. What I'm saying is like, don't make something with this in mind. This is just my advice and my opinion, my take on it. All right. You don't have to listen to it. But when you make something creative, when you write a book, when you are making some kind of dance routine, when you're making a song, whatever, don't write it with the thought that like, yeah, people are going to dig this. Like people are going to bang with this. Yeah. Because if you do that and then they don't, then like you feel like crap. Always make something because you want to make it. That's it. Like, I don't know, man. I just want to make this mural. I just want to paint it. Well, people don't like shark skeletons or dinosaur skeletons. Maybe your mural is just like a whole bunch of animal skeletons. People aren't going to bang with that. Well, I'm not making it for other people. I'm making it for myself. That's the key, I think, to anything good. You make something because you want to make it. You do that first so that you don't get disappointed and you don't be creative under the false pretense that you're going to blow up and be popular, because there are people who have done it overnight, but in the aggregate, in the long run, it usually takes a long time to get popular and blow up with anything. And secondly, you want to make something that for you that you love, because it's going to be easier for you to work on that in the hard times when you're too busy. When you're like, yo, I really don't feel like rapping today. I really don't feel like recording today, man. Like, yo, all this crazy stuff is happening. I don't feel like rapping and stuff. Your reason, like, yo, I do this because I love it. I draw this because I'm really into it. See that, because you're doing it for yourself, it's gonna help you be more consistent. It's gonna help you be like, yo, this is what I do anyway. I do this as a hobby. Like for me, drawing is a hobby. Like I don't sit down and draw the ribbon and be like, this chapter has to be out by this month, blah blah blah, and you know my blah, 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 blah. Nah, man, when people subscribe to me on Tapastic, man, I give them a thank you. I say thank you so much for subscribing to me. And that's it. I just roll with it. I'm making it for me. I'm doing it as a hobby. Do your creative stuff, what you love, as a hobby. Never, ever make it with the intention of like, yo, I got to make this because people are going to think it's banging, or people are going to think it's this and that. It's all good, man. And listen, I'm not saying make crap. Make stuff that people, that people will look at and be like, all right, like he worked on this. But like, don't make it with the intention of pleasing someone, because for me, that's not true art, right? And there's a fine balance between that. So you have this like really like postmodernist, like, art thing that everybody like sees, and it's the butt of a lot of jokes where it's like a guy has a canvas and like there's one little black square on it, and he's like, this I call this one eternity, and it is $2,100 and blah blah blah. That guy, man, like he's not an artist. Okay, I'm sorry, he's not. All right, he's not an artist. He's making something for like an exclusive club of people that want to feel very sophisticated because they can appreciate a $10,000 canvas with like a little black square on it. He's not a real artist. A real artist is making something that honestly, with all jokes aside, honestly is expressing how they feel. I take it back. If that $10,000 canvas with a little black square on it, if that's a representation of how this guy's feeling, like if he accompanied it with some kind of thing like, man, that's just me. Like I'm just a black square in this floating oasis of white bliss, then like, all right, I guess this is your art, this is what you're expressing or whatever. But a true artist, man, is just taking how he feels and what it feels, man, and like, and he's just expressing that. He's throwing it out there, and if people like it, they like it, and if people don't like it, then they don't like it. But he's doing it anyway, and that's why I think like Danny Brown said on a Joey Diaz podcast, he was like, yo, hip-hop, he's like, I believe hip-hop is something that you can't play in front of your parents, meaning that, it has explicit content, whatever, like that hip-hop has to be explicit. The reason why I think hip-hop tends to be explicit is because it's one of the rawest forms of artistic expression where people are really talking about what they want to talk about. And a lot of times, man, like that's not something that you could play at your public school. That's not something you could play. And I think I'm not going to get too controversial with it, but I think a lot of people misconstrue like the glorification of illegal activities and stuff through hip hop when really it's just expressing like stuff that's observed and feelings that these people are having, even if it's all a joke, man, even if someone's doing a gangster rap about like a fictitious gangster in a scenario that doesn't even exist, it's a story that they want to tell with elements of reality, with elements of stuff that they've imagined. So that's what that is, man, and that's to me what art is and what real hip hop is. So when I hear like people being like, oh, hip hop like promotes violence, like hip hop just like encourages people to be violent or encourages people to break the law and stuff like that, I laugh, man. I laugh. It's the same argument with, I think that violent video games encourages people to get violent. You got to break into that. Does it encourage little children to be violent? Probably. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of little kids can't really differentiate what's right from wrong yet. They need parental guidance. That's why a movie's rated PG. Same thing with hip hop. I don't think little kids should be listening to like tiny little kids should be listening to like explicit rappers. I think that is something that comes with time and with understanding, with maturity, to really analyze that art form and see what that's all about. I just noticed my spit guard is gone. I probably got robbed. Anyways, oh man, I don't know how this audio is going to sound now. Where is it? I don't look like a buffoon looking around, but somebody took it. Or maybe when we were rapping down here, we used it. I don't know. What was I saying? Artistic expression, hip hop, what you want to, making what you want to make. Just those people, man, who like, they make art for other people, it weighs on you. And I feel like that's why I didn't go to like any kind of art school. Not that I'm the greatest artist, because if I went to art school, I'd definitely learn how to be a better artist. I'm an okay artist. I'm all right. I just draw a lot. Like that's why I get compliments. I draw a lot. I'm okay artist. I know people that are amazing, and I look at their work and I'm like, whoa, like you're awesome. Those people went to art school, man. But the reason why I can never go to art school is because like I don't want to be making art for other people all the time. Like I'm doing it right now, and again, my client's cool and this project's cool, no ill will, nothing like that. But I want to monetize my skill for myself. Like I want to make something that I want to make. There's a saying that like you either work to make your dream become a reality, or you work to make someone else's dream become a reality. And I'd rather train myself up to the first option rather than the second. So I know what it is, man. I hear these stories of people who are like, yeah, I was animating for such and such, or I was doing this for such and such, but it just wasn't what I wanted to do. It's just, I'm for everyone else looking from the outside looking in, and this is a dream job. I'm getting paid to draw. I'm getting paid to animate. but it's not really what I want to do. And I guess I want to issue a challenge out there to people who are listening, man. If you're doing something that you don't want to do, really take into account how important it is in your life, and can you substitute it for what you do want to do. And if you're like me and you're working towards doing something that you do want to do for the rest of your life, I want to encourage you. But if you're ignoring it, I want to challenge you, man. That's to all my artists, people who are are making art to please other people. That's to all my people who are in careers right now, in a career right now to please someone else. Maybe it's your parents. Maybe it's some sort of family lineage that expects you to fall in line with their expectations of what you want to do in life. I challenge you, man. Just how important is that to you? How important is it to fulfill these expectations? How important is it to do what other people think that you're going to do? Just really weigh that out in the aggregate. We're coming up on probably the end of this episode. I try and make episodes over an hour because I feel like you get better content once you start talking for an hour. So I don't know where we're at with this, but we're getting towards the end. But basically, I just took this episode to say, like, thank you so much. Thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast, and that's why I'm here by myself today. Thank you so much for calling me and supporting me and following me and texting me saying, like, hey, like, yo, I really like your show, or I really like what you're doing, or I want to be a part of it. I don't take any of that lightly. I take all of that in great appreciation and great thanks. So thank you guys so much for all the support. Seriously, from my friends and some people I don't even know, like, thank you guys. Like, what I've been learning with this show is that, because let me rewind. Like, I've learned a lot from the people that have come on here, from the people that I've talked to, like just having guests over and stuff like that, on how to run this show, how to run something that's consistent. And like what this has taught me is just that there are people that want to collaborate. There are people that want to come on the show. There are people that want to turn this into something cool. And they're out there, and that it is possible. You know, this show started off as something that I was just like, man, podcasting, why not? I can do it. It started from that to me buying microphones and microphone stands and this Focusrite Scarlet Eye thing and setting it up on my laptop. You know, it's come a long way. We're episode 18. This is not by any chance a landmark. I think episode 20 will be a landmark, and by 25, I'm trying to do t-shirts for everybody who wants t-shirts. That'd be really cool, or stickers or whatever. Still trying to get this podcast on the podcast app. Oh my goodness, shaking my head. I'm such a goof for not making that happen already. But yeah, I mean, what I've been learning with this podcast is just that there's some really cool people out there, man. And I'm super, super appreciative for the positivity and just the cool vibes that I've been getting. There's not one person who has come up and, well, maybe, you know, no, everyone's going to be nice. No one's going to say, oh, your show sucks, even though, you know, it sometimes does. It's never because of the guest. It's always my fault, the technical stuff. But I've never had someone just like, you know, bash my show, which maybe is a bad thing. Maybe that means they're just, you know, that there's enough audience. I don't know. I'm rambling. But I do want to say thank you before I close out this episode to everybody who has been a part of this, who has helped it come this far. I know it's been inconsistent, and I'm going to try and work on that as best as I can, but I have so much stuff going on in my life, which shouldn't be an excuse, but, you know, it's just, it's only going to get busier. So hopefully Andrewcast serves to hopefully it serves to chronicle my future adventures, and hopefully it serves to really bring up topics that I want to talk about, and to just really have some cool conversations and some deep stuff going on. Hopefully it continues to live well and prosper, even though I'm not a Star Trek fan. I don't swing like that. Star Wars all day, every day. But, yeah, thank you. Thank you guys so much. This is the solo episode of Andrewcast. Andrew by himself, under the lights, in the hot seat, the red chair, battling with this microphone. Thank you guys. We out.
Just